This is Can You Relate with Christine, but it's less can you relate and more can you relate with Christine.
Well, it has been a hot minute since I have been in this position. Sitting here on this couch in front of the camera, all mic'd up, with Merlin by my side. It has been a hot minute. I'm going to skip the introductions and talking about how I stopped, why I decided to come back. I'm sure at some point throughout the episode I will get into it as some sort of a tangent. But for now, I am here. I have decided a while ago actually that I'm not done. I don't feel complete with the podcast. And what made me realize to push through all of the self-sabotage, all of the doubts and fears and insecurities and what have you, is asking myself a year to 5 years from now, if I look back on this moment in time, would I say, okay, I'm glad I did it. I did what I wanted to do. I said what I wanted to say. I feel complete with that experience. Or am I going to look back and wonder, what if I didn't stop? What if I just continued through? Am I going to look back on it with regret or with a sense of inner peace? And I realized that if I don't continue doing what I want to do, because I don't feel like I have completed what I need to do with this experience, that I will definitely look back on it with regret. And so I decided, you know what? I don't want to live a life with any form of regret. You can't live a life without any regrets. You're always going to regret some things on some level or another, a small interaction or a big life change. You will have regrets in your life, but I want to make sure that I'm intentional in not having anything to be regretful about, if that makes sense. And so, because I don't want future Christine to look back with regrets, present Christine is on this couch right now with Merlin, recording episode 1 of season 2 of Can You Relate with Christine? And Merlin, he really does not want to be left out today. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of reasons why I paused the podcast or I procrastinated jumping back into it. Now, while this might be a podcast for me, it might be a passion project for you, a side hustle, just whatever it is that is something that you really want, that you are scared to take the first few steps towards. I'm just going to be talking from my experience. It's a podcast, but take the lessons and apply them to the context of whatever it is that is on your mind right now, which I'm sure the second I said passion project or something that you're passionate about or you have a desire towards, I'm sure that thing already popped up in your mind. So just pretend I'm talking about that for you while I'm talking about the podcast for me. So the reason that you press pause on something or you take your time jumping back into it, there could be a lot of reasons. It could be self-sabotage, it could be fears, insecurities, doubts, fears of failure, fears of success, fear of putting yourself out there, being judged or being seen trying, or fear of potentially being vulnerable or just opening yourself up to anything, even praise. A lot of people don't feel like they are deserving of praise or they are unable to receive praise, receive compliments. So it's not just that we don't want to receive criticism or we don't want to receive judgment, because in our attempt to close ourselves off from these negative emotions or these projections of other people, we're also closing ourselves off to compliments, to praise, to successes, to victories. That's a completely different topic, and I could feel myself going on a tangent, so I'm going to stop myself there and come back to the intention of today's podcast episode. So it doesn't really matter why I paused or why I decided to come back. It matters to a certain extent. Obviously, you need to know what is going on in your mind to be able to navigate your thoughts and your emotional experiences. But if you spend too much time hung up on the why did you pause? Why did you self-sabotage? Why did you procrastinate? Why are you afraid? Or why am I going to do this again? Or how am I going to do this again? If you get too hung up on the details, you're going to be spending more time thinking about doing than you are actually going to be doing the thing that you want to be doing. I heard this quote last year, and it was in the context of anatomy. The map is not the territory. This is a metaphor by a Polish American scientist and philosopher. Okay, let me try. Alfred Korzybski. I hope I said it right. So the map is not the territory. In this statement, Alfred is emphasizing that our models or representations of reality are not the same as reality itself and should not be mistaken for it. The map is not the territory. Your abstract concept or your abstract understanding of a specific situation is just that. It's abstract. Because on the ground, when you are actually put in that situation, when you are facing the reality of it, it could be very close to the abstract concept. But going into it, if you are able to distinguish that they are not one and the same, this will not come as such a shock to you when things don't go according to plan, or when you find yourself trying to find your footing in navigating what is actually going on versus what you expected to happen or what you were anticipating. Now, the map is not the territory. This, I could talk about this for hours. I'm gonna try not to talk about this for hours because I wanna keep the episode pretty short and digestible. Whatever area of your life where you think you can plan, you think you can control, you think you can carve out a detailed map, but then when you're on the ground, navigating the territory is a completely different experience than the mapping out of the map, the planning out of the map. I'm going to give a few different examples just so that we're able to approach this concept from a bunch of different vantage points and make sure that it really sinks in. That's the way I learn. That's the way I really embody a lesson or an experience. And that's the way that allows me to really relay that message to others. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So one example is, since we're recording the podcast episode, let's start with the podcast. When I originally started the podcast, I had intended to release an episode every week. Now, there were growing pains because I've never recorded before, being on camera, dealing with the fear of being seen or of being judged, or tendencies to really hyperfixate on specific things and be critical of my appearance or how I sound or what I'm speaking or how I'm speaking. See, I can even right now, the spelling mistakes, all of these technical things. And then there's the whole process of editing, getting comfortable with it, learning how to do it, learning how to navigate Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts. There were a lot of growing pains. There was a lot of territory that was unfamiliar that I needed to navigate. And I did. And it felt incredible. I felt so, I don't want to say empowered because I feel like that word is so overused. But for lack of a better word, I felt so empowered because I felt very capable. I did something new that I never thought I could do, that I felt a lot of resistance coming up within me because of these new things that I didn't know if I was going to be able to succeed at them. But I did them. I got to the other side of it and I realized that it's not that complicated. There are growing pains, yes, there's a learning curve, yes, but it's not that complicated. And pretty soon I was able to record episodes on a weekly basis. But then I realized that, okay, why did I decide weekly basis? I started to feel this sense of overwhelm. Okay, for you to continue at this pace, you need to keep coming up with more ideas. What if I'm having a bit of a creative block? It's not good to take a week off or to take a couple of weeks off, but I don't want to be posting just for the sake of posting. I want to post stuff that actually has value, that means something to me, that people are going to resonate with. So I started overwhelming myself. I started psyching myself out. And then I don't know what the hell happened. I just stopped recording. I don't know how that happened. It just happened by itself because I overwhelmed myself. Because while the map said record once a week, post once a week, you're comfortable with recording, you're comfortable with the process, you're comfortable with coming up with the ideas, whatever it may be. That was the map, right? The territory was something completely different because the variables in the territory were, let's say, emotional burnout, were specific situations or circumstances in my life that were draining my energy or that required way more of my energy than I had anticipated. And I had to funnel my energy to those things that affected my energy to be able to come up with creative ideas, or my energy to be able to sit and record episodes. So I felt a huge gap in between the map and the territory. And of course, I internalized it. My mind made it seem as if there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't able to handle the load of all of these things at the same time, that I was doing something wrong. We all know how this conversation goes. I don't need to explain any further. You get it. I'm sure you've been there. That is an example of the map versus the territory. Knowing this, knowing that there's this big gap between the map and the territory, and being able to really see it, the veil has been lifted, to see that just because I plan something doesn't mean that it's going to go exactly the way that I want it to, or exactly the way that I planned. I need to be open to navigating anything unexpected, or finding my footing if things go awry. Knowing that, I still wanted to come back into the podcast. So how am I going to come back into this? Knowing that I need to find a way to reconcile the map and the territory. Something that I have also learned in this last year is when I've been faced with overwhelm, I find a version of the thing that I want to do that I could feel at peace with. And this is something that I recommend to friends, to family members, even to my clients, whether it's coaching clients or yoga clients. If you have certain priorities and you want to balance them together, they don't have to all look 100%, or rather the 100% of each doesn't have to mirror the 100% of the other one, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. It'll make sense when I explain it further. Hold on, give me a minute. So for example, let's say you want to start exercising again, but you can't go from 0 days of exercise straight back into 5 or 6 days of exercise, right? So what is the minimum amount that you could feel at peace with? And anything extra is just a cherry on top. So what is the minimum version of that thing that you can feel accomplished and at peace and complete with? And just start there. The whole point of this is navigating the territory and finding a version of that thing that you want that feels digestible, that feels like you can easily integrate into your routine, into your day-to-day life. Coming back to the podcast as my example. I know the map is one thing, I know the territory is something else. So I asked myself, instead of posting once a week, having one episode out weekly, which technically I know I can do, but I also know this is going to overwhelm me. And there might be periods of time in the next few months or in the next year where my energy is needed elsewhere. So knowing that, how am I going to set myself up for success in the future as well as now, in a way that feels sustainable? So I landed on 1 episode a month. This is the minimum amount of episodes that I feel accomplished with. And now anything more than that is just a cherry on top. So as long as I'm still doing my monthly episode, that's it, I'm meeting my goals. I'm getting that dopamine hit. I feel complete with my decision. I feel complete with my intentions. So I'm setting myself up for success, not just success in terms of having the goal and accomplishing that goal and just checking it off the list. I'm also setting myself up for emotional success, because I know that the territory might require different things of me at a later stage, emotionally, mentally, physically. I know that now, so that's just more data that I can plug into my decision-making process. This was a very long-winded way of explaining map versus territory. Not versus territory, map and territory, and how to find a way to reconcile both together when you are making a decision or when you are embarking on a project or on a goal. It's interesting how sometimes we need to hear a specific concept a bunch of different times, in different ways, from different perspectives. We just need to hear it time and time again. Every time you hear it, it's just another building block that is solidifying this foundation of this new way of thinking, of this new way of being. Because ultimately, beliefs are just thoughts that you think over and over and over again until they are solidified enough to become convictions, to become beliefs, to become something that you build your life around, or things that dictate your life or your way of being or your way of thinking or your way of doing. So it all does come back to the power of thought. And sometimes you do need to hear a concept, maybe the same concept over and over again, because this new way of thinking isn't going to happen overnight. I mean, if you look back on your life, there's never one specific moment, one clear, like a line that's been drawn in the sand where you have a before on one side and you have the after on the other side. It's way smoother than that. And an example that I really, really love is, again, it comes from a yoga anatomy book. See, it's wild. Things that you learn in one area of your life, lessons and just insights and reflections and breakthroughs, how you're able to transfer them into other areas of your life. I love it. Anyways, so the example that I read in a yoga anatomy book is you look at the colors of a rainbow. There's no clear line that says where orange starts and purple stops. I'm not sure which color comes first, but I mean, let's just bear with me here. So there's no clear start and end to one specific color. They kind of merge together. You can see the colors separately, but there isn't a line in the sand that's drawn where one starts and the other ends. And that is a beautiful way to look at map versus territory, to look at past versions of yourself and present versions of yourself, or the future versions of yourself, to look at a specific way of doing, being, or thinking that you were embodying or that you were being dictated by, and how you want to be now or how you want to be moving forward. It's never as clear as, okay, this is the start line and this is the end line or the finish line. It's a lot more nuanced and complicated than that. It's messy, it's chaotic. The territory is all over the place. And there is something so terrifying about it, especially if you're someone who needs to have control or needs to have some sort of control over things that are going on in your life, because there's a lot of things that we can't control, right? The unknown is terrifying. So we cling to any semblance of control because it makes us feel safe. But that's an illusion. We don't have any control. Not really, if you think about it. If you look at the meta view of life, of the universe, of the cosmos, we have no control whatsoever. And it's even the smallest ways. Like, for example, I used to think that I'm someone who loves routine. With time, I realized, no, I don't like routine. Routine makes me feel suffocated. I genuinely feel like the life is being sucked out of me if I am living my life by a specific routine. I realized I like structure, not routine. Structure allows me to prioritize different things, to know that I have certain items on my to-do list that need to be done today or this week or this month. I have goals, I have visions that are written in pen, but the path to them is written in pencil. Because in writing the path in pencil, it allows me to navigate the territory with flexibility. It allows me to adapt to different circumstances, to unexpected events. So I am someone, while I thought that routine really soothed my sense of control or my need of safety that is driving my, let's say, control tendencies, it actually is structure that grounds me, that settles me, and that allows me to have a little bit more breathing room in my life. There's so much outside of your control, but what is within your control is how you show up in different moments of your day or in different situations or in different circumstances, how you show up for yourself, how you show up in your life. What can I control? I can control how I navigate the territory, whether it's the territory as I'm working towards specific goals, whether it's the territory of navigating different emotional experiences, whether it's the territory of just life in general. You have a specific map for how you want certain experiences or your life to go. But the territory is a completely different experience. It's not either or, they're two sides of the same coin, because you do need to have a plan of sorts. You do need to have some sort of a vision or a goal or a strategy, but you also need to know when to plug in new pieces of data, when to plug in new information. You also need to know when you can adjust, fine-tune, adapt, and be able to move forward with even more momentum, to be able to work smarter, not harder. So this statement, the map is not the territory, the abstract idea that you have of something is not the reality of it. It is a version of it. It is a version of a reality of it, but it's not the full experiential reality of it. How many times have you put a specific destination on your GPS and it tells you you need X amount of time to get there, but when you're en route, you realize maybe there's a road that's closed, or there's an accident, or there's construction that wasn't factored into your travel time. So we've all experienced the difference between map and territory in certain areas of our life. But like I said earlier, a lot of things are transferable from one area to the other. So the map is not the territory. It doesn't just have to be when you're driving on the road. Map is not the territory. It could be with goals, with passion, emotional experiences, with life, with managing your to-do list, with managing the overwhelm, with managing your day-to-day when things go wrong or things don't go according to plan. It's just life. We're living life, and we are navigating the territory as best we can on a daily basis. I genuinely believe that life is just about doing the best you can. And on that note, I'll catch you next time. Or, well, you'll catch me next time.